This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2003 Season 6, better known as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fast Forward, and that is what the season was titled. It was pretty interesting to see, and I do think that this season does have the small flaw of that I think that they intended for at least one more season of fast forward storylines because it does feel like some stuff was never completed, but the final season was them returning to New York. And I'm guessing it's because they knew it was going to be the last season and they wanted to finish up some storylines in the present day. But still, I think that this was a just really interesting story to see. And while I was a little afraid and felt like it was going to be not as good, I think it actually was really compelling. The character I was probably most afraid of was the character of Cody, who was, well, I was guessing was going to most likely just be an annoying kid that they were going to insert into boost trainings, but he actually was well written and was a compelling character in this, so that was a genuine surprise for me, and I think that it was done well. But going into the specific episodes, there was just some interesting things that they put in there, going and introducing them to a lot of future enemies, and this is the only season really that doesn't have too much to do with the Shredder at all. There is a single appearance in a time travel episode where they once again go up against the Utram Shredder, but that's really it. This is the only season that really doesn't have a major focus on the Shredder as an antagonist, no matter if it's the Utram Shredder from the first three seasons, Karai from season 4, or the Demon Shredder from season 5, or even the Digital Shredder from season 7. So, going into the season, it's essentially almost all completely original antagonists besides Agent Bishop, who we learned earlier in the season or series that is essentially immortal, where he just does the kind of classic sci-fi storyline of transferring his consciousness to new bodies. And we also see Baxter Stockman appear towards the end, where he basically has the same thing, where he is just a brain, so he's able to go and rebuild bodies and transfer his consciousness also. But going through these, there's the few antagonists that continue to show up. There is uh, Darius Dunn, who is the uncle of Cody and is just an evil person that is hiding it well from everyone else, although just the character's design is a very obvious villain design. And looking at it, it's honestly just, it's super interesting to see. He is serves as a great antagonist for the Turtles, and his fights with them are done well. I think that it's super interesting where how he's as this way to weasel out of it, and really everyone believes he's innocent until nearly the end of the season. We also have Cody, who is honestly a great relation to his, oh, I think it's like great grandparents, where April O'Neil and Casey Jones do go and get married, and he is the eventual um, heir to their empire, where his parents do die and he's being raised by his robot Sterling and also his uncle, who is obviously evil, as I said earlier. But the one thing that's interesting about the entire thing with him is, he has this robot suit very inspired by Casey Jones's kind of, vigilante suit. I he doesn't really have a vigilante name, so there's nothing to really call it, but his hockey mask and everything. And just going through with him, as I said, honestly, just pretty interesting stuff. He does go and is able to get more freed from the control of his uncle, and I think that is interesting. And he also has relations with a bunch of other people, and it does get made more and more interesting. The first time I think it was just really interesting to see was when they learned that Bishop was really a changed person. He became the president of an intergalactic alliance, and he is just a really changed man. He isn't the more evil antagonist they fought back in the past, and that was honestly really interesting. I think it's a great change for the character and to show him evolve, especially since he's been alive for such a long time. Oh, also, I should remember I was thinking, I think that, although it was never said, I think that it's really likely that Darius was the one responsible for the death of Cody's parents. They really never say what happened, but I feel like they were murdered by Darius, and just because this was a kid show, that they weren't able to go and outright say that. Although they just do a lot of horrifying things in this, so I just guess it's just outright saying that someone was responsible for someone else's parents' deaths was essentially off screen, but that's just my personal theory, and I feel like it makes sense just based on everything that was revealed in this series, so or at least in the season, because you really don't see Cody again in the next season besides him sending the turtles back to the past and then him watching April and Casey's wedding at the end. But yeah, honestly, just going through this, I think that honestly, just a lot of different fun, solid stories going on. The probably the most annoying antagonists are Jammerhead and then the I can't think of the guy's name, but it's like the three people. But I think those two people, I mean, they're fine, but really, there's nothing super intriguing about them. Going through more of it, there is probably the most interesting antagonists in here, the ones that I think have the most wasted potential, which is the evil versions of the Ninja Turtles. And these are clones created by I don't remember how to pronounce this guy's name, but he was the evil alien. I see his name on the because I'm looking at the episode descriptions, but it was like Shekinaba or something. I don't know what his name is pronounced. I can't think of it right now. But these were honestly the most intriguing antagonists, and they were just honestly really interesting to see. I think that it was just kind of cool to see this evil version, and that was just it was something different to see. And there's a really compelling episode with evil version of Leonardo who is changed by his time when trying to infiltrate the Ninja Turtles, and I feel like that's just the most disappointing thing that they never went anywhere with that because that was their final appearance in the series and they were never seen again. And then there is just honestly one of the most entertaining episodes where it's just titled The Journal, and this is just Splinter going and with Cody kind of screwing with the turtles, telling them that they can't look into what happens in the past after they return. And they leave this fake journal with just a bunch of just increasingly more and more insane stories that go and to just show them how bad interfering with the past could be and how it changes things. It goes with one from Michelangelo going and using future knowledge that accidentally causes his heroes, the Justice Force, to be turned into babies, which was, I mean, it was a funny thing, but if you take a look at the stuff in the series before and earlier in the season, you see the grandson of the hero, I can't think of the guy's name right now, but it was the main hero that Michelangelo was with, and the guy is also turned into a baby. And since it's never really implied that he has children or anything, and that if he was turned into a maybe there's a good chance that he could have been the father of the new Turtle Titan. It just put in some little plot holes that if you're really thinking it starts having little problems with it. Then there's a thing with Leonardo going and learning that there was a traitor inside of the, the Ninja Tribunal, and him going to train with them, him thinking it is Karai who also went to train with them, and eventually realizing that it is him because of just a simple reason that he had this future knowledge. But there's a problem with that with there would have never been this traitor if he didn't create that um, doubt within him. So it really wouldn't have made as much sense. But that one's the most normal time travel logic thing where it is self-fulfilling prophecy at least. But it still has that small little plot hole of if he never went to the future, he would have never there would have never been a traitor because he would have never mistrusted Cry like that, especially after she redeemed herself at the end of the previous season. It's also interesting that this is the last appearance of Cry besides potentially the wedding, and I don't remember if she was there or not. But just going through everything, all the other stories, there is the one by Donatello where it's implied he is turned into Sterling after he is suffers a serious and major accident. It is one where, yeah, could potentially be the one that could have actually happened. Although it's very clear that Sterling isn't a Ninja Turtle and doesn't really like them. There is just a small little thing where they're like, yeah, it technically could have happened. Now going through just the last one, which is one that clearly shows that this story is fake. It is Raphael just using it to go and get to the ultimate fight, and then the end of the world basically happens, and they're like, wait. This is not possible because if it was, then the future wouldn't be that we're in right now wouldn't exist. And then that's what Splinter's like, yeah, this is just a lesson I was teaching you guys not to go back, and how the smallest little change could cause kind of the end of the world. And I got bored when I was doing the final story. It was like, you know what, let's just make this the most insane thing possible. And it was honestly it was just a lot of fun, and it was one of the best episodes of the series just because it's just going and messing with these alternate scenarios and just has Splinter kind of just going and screwing with the turtles, which was honestly hilarious. Now going into some of the other interesting stuff, there's a few other, just episodes setting other things up. There is the one where I don't remember how to say the alien's name, but he goes and infects the other turtles, and they realize that Earth's sun is the cure to the virus that is infecting everyone, and that causes a major disaster. And then there is the entire time travel thing where they go and almost have the time window fixed, but the one alien goes and causes some problems. He creates his own and sends them to the past where Donatello and Splinter are sent back to right around the time when the Turtles and Splinter himself were mutated. And then Leonardo and Cody are sent back to just after their first fight with the Shredder, where they presume him dead, and the Shredder there is able to use his technology to follow their signal back to the present, or the future at this time, which is currently the present. And don't you love talking about time travel and how convoluted it is? But he goes and fights them there, trying to take the time travel technology. but it's sent back to the past, and honestly, it was pretty interesting to see there. And the Shredder is honestly just kind of surprised just how better the Turtles are from the previous fight because the Turtles, yeah, have evolved a lot from their appearance in the first season to their appearance here, where they have defeated multiple versions of the Shredder, and they're definitely a lot more powerful than the original Utrom Shredder was, even though they were barely able to beat him in season 3. And this more or less like wraps that up where they're saying that yeah, they could defeat the original Shredder now, and that was honestly kind of interesting. Going back to kind of towards the end of the season, there is them finally being able to take down Darius, and that was honestly a pretty interesting fight. And then right after that, Darius goes and uses his connection to Cody to be able to take over the Turtle X suit, and he then goes and uses that to try and take out his nephew, and the Turtles are able to save him after destroying the suit, which is done by Sterling sacrificing himself, and Sterling does become a really the new Turtle X, and honestly, that was also just pretty interesting to see. Going through more of it, there is this episode that just kind of interesting where it seems like the world that Raphael was sent to in that one time travel episode in season 3 was actually set in an alternate universe like Michelangelo was. But it actually turns out that here it is the future, and he actually invents the sport that he races in that. So it's interesting to say that, this time travel always happened in this universe, and this was always part of the timeline since there is the entire thing that Raphael couldn't compete in that event if he never created it and converted the person he meets in that one who was a kid in this into a motorcycle lover, which is just pretty interesting. And now moving into the end of it, there is some pretty interesting things where they have to go and save Bishop from Baxter Stockman, who he was left for dead, but Bishop thought that Stockman was dead. He goes for revenge until he realizes that Bishop truly has changed and wants to help him. Bishop goes and gives him a new body and gives him an official job and forgives him for all of his crimes, which is honestly just really interesting. And then after that, there is this really interesting episode, as I mentioned earlier, where the evil Leonardo clone goes and tries to take him down from the inside, but is really changed by it. And as I said, that is honestly just the most disappointing episode in the long term because nothing happens with these changes that happens to Leonardo, this evil Leonardo, and that's probably the most interesting thing to see. And after that, there is an episode just honestly really inspired by at least from what I can see, that one collector from Superman the Animated Series, the person who creates a zoo of like rare creatures, and I mean, I guess that one was fine, but again, it just felt a lot like that one Superman the Animated Series episode, and I'm sure there's others like that, but that's just the first one I can think of off the top of my head. Then finally, they have the last two episodes where, well, one, I think these should have been flipped around, where the last episode's just a sort of simple story where they're going and working with Zix, who is a character they've kind of been at a sort of ally enemy perspective of the entire season, and him tricking them into getting a matter transporter, but they actually trick him and they don't actually give him it because Donatello realizes that the story he gave was completely fake, which is, well, it was very obvious through the entire story because we knew what he needed and we knew he was tricking the turtles. And then the Day of the Awakening, which is the second to last episode, probably should have been the finale where they go and finish off the that one just I can't think of how to pronounce the guy's name, but his evil plan to take over the Earth, and they manage to defeat it and defeat him and the one evil AI that worked for him. And she is antagonist that kind of appears throughout the season, but is really only super important in the next one where she's mutated into the Cyber Shredder. But I'll be talking about that tomorrow. And honestly, as I said, yeah, honestly, this was a really interesting season. It was well done, and it was honestly not as great as I was expecting. I was expecting something that was going to be very much a forced storyline and them just trying to continue the story and force it to go on after the very obvious intended ending for season 5. And it felt like, just them not having any stories to set in the present day anymore after the defeat of the multiple versions of the Shredder. But ultimately, it did work. And I want to know what you think. Please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.